Given his active role as impeachment manager for the second Senate impeachment trial of Donald Trump during President Trump's first term, it comes as no surprise that Congressman Jamie Raskin has vowed to lead the opposition to the incoming Trump administration. Stacey, President Trump in November won overwhelmingly the presidential election after the American public was repeatedly told that he was a threat to democracy. So aren't the complaints being raised by Congressman Raskin mere political posturing?
Casey, his entire political career has been built on political theater. So why is this posturing any different? He's like Will Juwando in this regard, in that he's very effective at making emotional appeals. Listen, having said that, I read his book, Unthinkable, and it was a searing and heartrending account over the loss of his beloved son, Tommy, who was one of his best friends, and it was due to mental illness and ultimately suicide, just days leading up to the melee on Capitol Hill on January 6th. And while some folks tried to discourage Raskin from attending the certification of the election results, he really felt compelled to be there, and in part to honor Tommy's memory. So he brought his daughter and son-in-law along, who ultimately had to hide for hours in fear of their lives. So Raskin and his family experienced dramatic trauma in a very short period of time. And it seemed to me, and I'm certainly no psychologist, but he transferred a lot of his angst onto Donald Trump and made him the boogeyman in his life. And what we've witnessed in this last election is that the country has no tolerance for lawfare and over-the-top these political charges, making legal cases out of them, in some cases just artificial persecutions, particularly for Donald Trump. So on a final note, the National Democratic Party is really floundering for solid leadership right now, and I assume Raskin is looking to fill that void by being the bedeviler-in-chief of Donald Trump and other Republicans. I believe he, like other Democrats right now, need to tread very carefully.
So, Maricé, Mr. Raskin claims that we are in the fight for our lives, which seems to be a continuation of the theme that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. But it doesn't seem like the voting public agreed with him. So what are we to expect during the next couple of years in Congress for him?
I think Jamie is a national treasure. I couldn't disagree more with what Stacey how she described his career. This is a constitutional law professor, attorney, an academic, scholar. If his career, his success were a result of theatrics, he would have then played on the fact that he's a cancer survivor, and he did not. I think it's great that you read his book on Tommy's life. It is definitely a touching book, but that's not what his career has been built on. If anything, and I hear you, Casey, in terms of the popular vote. But if you look at the jurisdiction that Jamie actually represents, those of us that have followed his career from the State House, this is an individual who never sold out to leadership, because of his ingrained respect and love for the constitutionality of things. And I think it's wonderful to see him then now using that knowledge in favor and benefit of the American people. I think we would be very well served as having him top seat judiciary. Yeah.
During the first Trump administration, the fight between the political battles that were waged against President Trump were certainly divisive for the country and unproductive. And ultimately, many of those political battles were found to be unwarranted. So are we going to see more of those political battles, or are we going to see an effort to help the country as a whole?
I think we're going to see an effort to help a country as a whole, because he's a policy wonk, because he understands how the administration can push bills down the legislature's throat. We know that Jamie will be the correct protector in terms of how the legislative process works. So if there is something that would not benefit the American people, that goes to the Judiciary Committee, which is going to be a lot of what Mr. Trump's agenda is about, coming in with Project 2025, talking about just the dissolution of so many legal institutions in our country, and those that are the foundation of our democracy. I couldn't think of a better person than Congressman Jamie Raskin to lead that battle.
Okay. Stacey, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I should add that there's a distinction here. Jamie is a very smart man, Maricé. I agree with you, and his credentials are unquestionable. But there are two separate things. You can have those credentials and still be a grandstander and take advantage of being in the limelight. And he has done that quite, effectively in some ways, but in other ways he hasn't. They lost the impeachment effort, the second one, well, then the first one too. So my thought is that if he's in that position, he may be looking for every single opportunity possible that, to Casey's point, is unwarranted. When I say any opportunity possible to try to persecute, prosecute, and it's unwarranted. And the American public has really expressed a distaste for this. And this is why I've expressed in every single episode, these politicians, these Democrat politicians, I think need to pay very careful attention to the fact that the American public could not digest that, and they will not going forward.